Hey everybody, Robot here from Vespa, Motorsport, and scooterwest.com. If you're looking for parts and accessories for your new 2024 Vespa, or you got a vintage Vespa, we got you covered at scooterwest.com. So what's missing on the scooter? So if you watched the previous video, I put the blackout switch gears. Of course, I've done the levers, which we do to pretty much all the new GTSs that have the beautiful black trim. There's one last thing. What's kind of standing out on this scooter? Well, these turnstiles. Yes, they're excellent. They got nice LED running lights, but you could do even better by upgrading to a smoke set of Koso turnstiles, all four corners. They got a really cool new look to them, and today I'm going to show you how to install them. If you're wondering about the part number for them, MI200-GTS-HPE2-BK. They also make a clear version that can be special ordered as well, but most people are looking for the tinted look. My opinion on them is they're pretty bright. They may be brighter than the stock turn signals, so you know, kind of use your own judgment, but technically they are for off-road use only because they are smoked. Maybe there's some areas where they do an inspection and you may need to clear lenses. So without further ado, let's get going. So before we get started, I'll show you what's included. So of course the turnstiles themselves, you can kind of get an idea. I'll leave the nice protective film on there, but they got a very cool like look to them, a very high gloss black with a clear lens, and then you see the kind of the Nike check mark that's kind of in there. That's the actual running light, and of course I'll have them all turned on for you. They're built really nice. They got more weight than the stock ones. They use the factory style sealed connectors. Wiring wise, they're pretty much 100% plug and play. You're not cutting wires on the scooter. Running light wiring's already present. They have a new bracket that holds it from the backside. I've talked about in the past, the 2023 and later, they no longer have exposed fasteners. The downside is you got to dismantle the scooter pretty far to access the bracket that holds the turnstile. So there's a specialized bracket that comes with these front turn signals. Moving on to the rear, obviously they kind of mimic that style. Kind of got a check mark look to them. And again, they got a little bit of weight. That's a one-way moisture barrier. So if there is moisture in there, leave it out on a sunny day and usually it will go out that membrane. That's just kind of how they work. Sometimes they're not 100% sealed. I think this is sonically sealed. There's one huge improvement I do see about this turnstile. The original Vespa turnstile, it's a threaded screw that goes into plastic, and I've already seen those break. And we've had to replace turn signals because this little part where a little screw goes into will break off and the turnstile will hang out. Well, fortunately I got the turnstiles in stock, the stock ones, but you can upgrade it to these new style and you get the added feature of the running lights, which is going to look really cool. There's an extra wire, an extra wiring harness, and of course all the hardware in stainless steel that's needed and instructions. I'm going to start with the front. Of course, the hardest part of the whole job is going to be dismantling the glove box. I've done that in the past on some other videos that pertain to the 2023. It's kind of a lot of work. It's much easier if you have the handlebars completely dismantled, but I'm just going to muscle through it with the handlebars in place, and we'll get these installed. All right, I'll show you the tools needed before we get started. So, tool trim, we have the whole set on the Scooter West web stores, plastic trim tools. This is pretty useful to have if you're going to service your scooter. Tool SN, it's for the fork bearings, but it works on the radiator cap. The all trusty Torx drivers, T25, T30. Gonna need a 1/4 inch ratchet with both a 5.5 millimeter and a 10 millimeter socket, a 4 millimeter Allen key, and some diagonal pliers. And we're going to trim a grommet, so you need a razor blade, some type of sharp knife of some sort. So let's get right to it. I have my trusty T25 Torx screwdriver. We'll get these two knee pads, as I like to call them, out of the way. That was pretty magical. And maybe we'll do this with a little bit more style here. Okay. And the reason you're taking these off is there's a pair of screws that are located on both the left and right side. Keep track of the screws. These are going to be a little shorter, pointy screws, about, I think if I recall, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. And I'm doing a great job on this side. It's about 1/2 inch, and they're going to be identical from left and right side. The screws that hold the knee pads on do not have a point on them. While I still have the T25 Torx driver, might as well get the fuse cover out of the way. It's right below that little USB port. There's one screw there, and then there's another one. In the middle. That out of the way. And that reveals the fuse holders there. Move on to our T30 size Torx driver. Sometimes you gotta ever so slightly bend the glove box out of the way. It's got a little friction to it. This is going to be a larger machine screw, M6 threads on it. Actually thread into the frame of the scooter. And I'm not going to bother closing the glove box. And at the very bottom, there's going to be another 4 screws, shorter screws on the inside. Make sure you don't put a long screw in there because you would puncture the wiring or a hose. These outer ones are going to be long and have a point to them. Yeah, one last thing we'll remove is the radiator cap. You could do it with like needle nose or use the scooterwest tool SN, which is the tool for the fork bearings, and it kind of just happens to engage with the teeth of this cap, because that cap is typically never hand tight. There's really not much clearance. All right, so get the badge pried off, and this pry tool is a little bit blunt. You could use a screwdriver, but a lot of times it will mar the finish on your horn cover there. So give that a little pry, lift it right out of the way. 25. And kind of pull from the bottom down here, just straight away from the frame. And there's these 3 little snap tabs that just go right into the body right there. Set that aside. And the last fastener, you got a T30 Torx. So what this is it retains a bracket that kind of holds the center of the glove box top. And you don't want to lose this, so just go ahead and pull that straight up. A little bracket like such. All right, so before I remove the glove box, a couple things I'm going to do to prevent scratches, especially on something that has a matte finish. Put a microfiber rag right there, because once I pull the glove box off, I'm not likely going to disconnect all the electronics that are attached to the glove box. And one last thing, it's much easier if you do remove the handlebar covers, but it is possible to remove the glove box without removing the handlebar cap. But just to protect the paint, because you will be grinding on the bottom, I'm kind of putting masking tape all the way around. Just tuck it in there. So, you know, we're gonna be grinding that a little bit when we're pulling the glove box off. And I'll warn you, it's gonna take some muscle to get this out of the way. So you kind of lift it like that. You can see it pulled away. It's still hanging up on the filler neck of that coolant reservoir right here. So you kind of got to lift it over that. And of course, the glove box kind of goes in there. Then the next part is the glove box kind of has two plastic pieces that go in between. So you got to really, really stretch, give it a lot of stretching to get it all the way around all the stuff. And it's pretty good quality plastic, but it does take a bit of a stretch to pull it away and around the, essentially the keyless components, you know, that are in all the cables on the left side right here. So there we go. So that's as far as I'm going to take it. We have access to the turn signals. You can see there's several pieces of wiring in here. You got the keyless entry module. You got a Bluetooth module on this side. There's like a big turn signal flasher. They definitely got a little bit more wiring going on for all those techy new features. All right, so I have a 10mm socket on a little 1/4" ratchet. There's just a single nut, and it holds this cage, the plastic cage that keeps the turn signal in place. And there's going to be this single nut, a washer that comes off. So once you have this cage released, you can see that you can't pull the cage all the way off because they do have this little trap. So you can use one of the pry tools to kind of get it past those latches, and it's kind of snapped onto the turn signal from both the top, bottom, and the left and right side. So you may need to pry in a couple spots and just kind of work this little cage away from that stock turn signal. Oops. There we go. So it released the cage, and you can see there's some wiring that attaches to that cage. And the way you release that connection right there is just pretty simple. There's a little tab at the bottom. Just go ahead and pull it up, pull it away, and then you pull this little tab right here and it disconnects the connection. The turn signal pulls out from the front, and the plastic cage separates from the rear here. Let's go ahead and set that aside. We're not going to use that. All right, so you have the new turn signal. You have this little plastic or rubber thing that just kind of keeps that in place. Go ahead and pull the cage away. And it's pretty similar, the whole setup. So go ahead and slide the turn signal in from the front. And there is a small amount of adjustability. And we'll go ahead and slide the cage in place. I'm kind of holding everything together for just time being. They include new hardware. It's pretty much identical to the original hardware. So flat washer, split washer, and then the nut. And I'm going to look at it from the front to try to get this in the center of the opening the best I can. And once you've accomplished that, go ahead and tighten down this screw here. And when it's bottomed out, that's as far as you need to go. If you need to make any little adjustments, go ahead and loosen that and kind of shift the turn signal left or right or up or down. So the connection right here is pretty straightforward. Just pretty much plug that right in. And you're welcome to use like a zip tie and secure the connection to the bottom of the bracket there. And pretty much repeat on your left side right there. Oops. So there we go. Just kind of keep it all out of the way, keep it from rattling. We'll go ahead and cut that little trimmer off. All right, the all-important step. This is by far the most important step. They got the protective film. Go ahead and peel those to expose those beautiful turn signals. And we have all the electrical all hooked up on the glove box. I haven't put the glove box together. Let's see what happens. Ooh, whoa, those look good. So, of course, we got to check them out. That's the best looking Nike whoosh I've ever seen. All right, so now it's time to go through some difficult tasks here, putting the glove box back. So this little lever right here, I don't know if the camera gets this, they do have a really tasteful mod, which is a rubber band. It goes from this hook to the hook here, and it keeps some spring tension on that. It is possible to put the glove box on without that rubber band there. You just gotta hold the hook from the inside of the glove box. So just FYI, the rubber band is in place, so I'm not gonna hold the hook. But if you hold the hook down, usually it all goes together with no issues. Just like when I was removing it, I'm gonna have to spread this to get it around all this keyless mechanism right here and the wiring that's on the left. So we'll just start with that and use some muscles, kind of walk it around those parts there. Pretty much kind of got to go as high as you can with the glove box. And make sure you got a rag under there. All right, so you got it a little further there. There we go. Now it's past everything. Make sure the wiring doesn't get pinched in there. There's some of the wiring for the keyless system that's up at the top. I tend to want to push it down. And pretty much get it over that filler neck. And we'll look at the seam all the way around, make sure it goes right into the edge trim, the leg shield trim of the scooter. I'm using my knee to kind of hold it in place. And we'll start with the first fastener, and we'll put the one that's in the center right there. So I got the shoulder screw, and we'll kind of feel our way around, get it aimed to the threaded boss on the frame. And again, if you don't have the rubber band holding that in place, you'd hold this hook down. And technically, I made a little mistake. I didn't need to remove this little fuse cover, but I just showed you how to do it. Normally, if I was pulling the whole entire glove box off, I'd have to release the fuse block, so I would have had a reason to take that off. But I think I was in autopilot earlier, so I was just taking everything apart. And just make sure everything's kind of lined up in the seam before you get it too closed up. Right now it's popped out. Sometimes you just give it a little bump and it will fit right in. Looks good there. Yep, a little bit, get it in place. The pointy screw right here, that's nice and long, goes in the corner. Got the short and pointy screw right here, and that goes in the center position. Another pointy short screw goes up in upper left and right corners of the glove box. Go ahead and put the radiator cap back on. Make sure it's pretty tight. Pretty much as tight as you can get it by your hands is good enough. And make sure it seals up. And it's filled up to the right level right there. And Get the knee pad, as I like to call it, in place. And pretty much repeat with the same fasteners on the left side. I'm gonna get the masking tape out of here. And the next step is I'm gonna turn the ignition on. So that's all turning nice and freely, nothing's weird there. And I'm gonna watch this as I push the glove box in and see how that's opening, so I know it's safe to close up the glove box, because that's gonna work just fine. So if that latch isn't working, you're gonna wanna go all the way back and take the glove box back off and get the latch to all line back up. All right, so we'll get the bracket back in place. It's a little harder sometimes when everything's bolted up, but so go ahead and drop that all the way down, then the screw lines up. One cover goes back on, nice and easy. Just line up those fasteners there. Give it a little technical tap, as I like to call it. And put the single screw that's kind of got the coarse threads, and it goes into the little square plastic nut that's in the frame. And then snap the badge on. Then now it's time to move to the back. All right, to remove the turnstile, you take a 4mm Allen key and you kind of feel your way around. And preferably one with a ball end on it, makes it nice and easy. Just go ahead and remove that single fastener. Oops, I just set the alarm on it, so. And then you remove this little cap and the single fastener. Then carefully just pop the turnstile right out of its socket there. And they have a little clip that holds the connection. And just like the front turnstiles, you want to lift the little tab to separate the connection here. Kind of do that right through the hole. And we'll do the same for the left side here. So go ahead and take your 10mm socket and reach approximately, I would say, I'm kind of feeling my way around. It would be directly behind here. There's gonna be a single nut. It's gonna hold the taillight. So. May need a little extension or a wobble, kind of finding the perfect angle. They have that pretty tight, actually. Could use a combination wrench. And once you break it free, you could just spin that right off. There you go. And get your fingers underneath it. And it should just pry away. And if you're having trouble with that, you could use one of the plastic pry tools and just carefully lever it off the body. There's gonna be a pair of clips, just like that. And there's a single connection underneath here. So go ahead and pull that out of that plastic clip right there and separate the tail light. So go ahead and locate the wiring harness right here. And there's gonna be a couple things we're gonna do. So you have this little grommet that the wiring goes through. Go ahead and push that grommet through. And you can see it was already trapped on the wiring right there. We're gonna do a little modification to that grommet. So this little grommet right here, we're gonna go ahead and give it a nice little slice with a nice fresh straight edge razor. Take extra care not to cut the wiring, because all that's insulating that wiring is kind of like a layer of electrical tape. And what we're gonna do is turn this connector around, push it back through, This hole right here takes a little bit of effort to get it through the hole, but it will pop right through. And then with the new harness, there's that same connector. We're gonna push that through the hole. Just like such. And as you can see, you got a couple more wires right there. You can make that hole a little bit bigger, and you could do it carefully with a razor blade on a table. Make the hole, I would say like 8 millimeters or 5/16. If you have hole punches, another way to do it, this would be like a punch that you send through leather or plastic or rubber. Go ahead and set that up on a wooden block and just give it a swift strike with a hammer. And that should cut all the way through. With a hole punch, you can punch a little bit cleaner hole than just using a razor blade, but not really needed. I just happen to have that tool on me. And go ahead, put that grommet back around all this wiring. And it kind of just keeps, you know, rain and mud out of that hole there. So go ahead and push it back in there, and look at that. It all fits in there pretty nice. And you have the little connection for your tail light. And the remainder of the harness is all in here. We'll deal with that later. Put the tail light back in place. So you see that little plastic thing right there? That's what holds the connector in place. It's always good to reuse that little thing. So and put that in place. Snap the connector in there. And there's the threaded stud and the two gripper clips that hold this taillight to the frame. Give it the technical tap. Go ahead and put that nut back in place. That's all it needs there. So we got a longer wire and we have a shorter wire. So the shorter wire is going to go to our right turn signal. The longer wire, it's going to be routed with the rest of the wiring up in there. Of course, you know, I don't have a camera back here. I should, but go ahead and kind of route that wire right through the turn signal hole. Have it paralleled with the existing wiring that's attached to the bodywork of the scooter. And then you have this 3-pin connector that needs to plug into that existing taillight connector. So we'll go ahead and make that connection. Give it a little snap. And if you're in somewhere where there's a lot of wet weather, you may want to have dielectric grease as your friend to kind of weatherproof all these connectors. I'm going to take my first zip tie, so I have 3 remaining zip ties with the kit, and I'm going to attach that connector to the existing wiring harness. So, and I have the little flying tail right there and the 2-pin connector for the turn signal. So go ahead and put this in place. Pretty easy to do. We'll make the connection just like the original turn signal. And carefully make this little short connection right here. Push it all the way in till it snaps, and it's kind of all weather sealed in that little bullet. Tuck that in place. Again, just pop that right in there. All right, so go ahead and locate the new hardware for the return signal, which is this really, really small nut. I think is a 3 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter threads, a flat washer and a split washer. You're gonna need the socket you never use in your socket set. And it's the 5.5 millimeter socket. You could use a combination wrench. And the only thing you need from the original turn signal is that little plastic top hat. This part has been around for a long time. It actually holds the badge and other parts onto the bodywork of other models of the Vespas. So the order is the flat washer goes on top of that little top hat. I'll try to kind of hold all this, and we'll slide on from the back side and it's went right on, no problem. And the threads are kind of holding it in place. Put the little split washer onto that threaded stud. It's all staying in place, and then last, very carefully feel our way around, and there you go. Got that tightened. Get that in there without the socket right now. Make sure it's all centered. Go ahead and tighten that up. And that's a pretty fragile small screw. You can put on a ratchet, and I did it hand tight, and I would say I'm only doing another third of a turn, and that's all you need to hold that in place. And I know all the wiring up here, you have the extra zip tie. Make sure it's all tucked with the original wiring. You're more than welcome to use more zip ties that are included. The remaining 2 zip ties you want to use to hold the extra flying lead, because there's a little bit extra length. So we'll go ahead and install the left-hand turn signal. All right, so we can put the remaining zip ties. I'm kind of looking from underneath the skirt here, as I like to say. The idea is you just want to have all these connectors secure, so nothing's like moving around or gets entangled with the motor, because you do have the engine, you know, that's your swing arm as well on these scooters, and especially on the other side, muffler can make contact with the wiring, and that's not good. It kind of. And we'll go ahead and cut all those tails off the zip ties. It all looks pretty tidy in there. So the moment of truth, let's see if it all works. Get that protective film out of the way. So now the moment of truth, let's see how they look. Oh yeah, that looks great with the running lights. Very cool. You get the extra visibility, you get the cool look of the tinted lenses, and a new unique look that kind of has that LED neon that matches the tail light as well. So there you go. Nice and easy install. Pretty straightforward other than removing the glove box, all plug and play. So if you're looking to buy this from scooterwest.com, we have it available on the Scooter West web store, these Koso turn signals, a complete set with the wiring and everything. MI200-GTS-HPE2-BK, because we have the turn signal sets for the prior generation, 2022, all the way back to 2006. Can't say the number right, but if you have 2023, 2024, or later for the GTS, the Koso is the way to go. All right, well, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and scooterwest.com. You can find plenty of other videos that are accessories and parts, and even some how-tos that are specific for the 2023 and later Vespa GTS on the Vespa Motorsport YouTube channel. Just type Vespa Motorsport into YouTube search, and once you're on the Vespa Motorsport channel homepage, there's actually another search where you could type in like HPE2, that's our little nickname for 2023 and later GTS, along with any other accessories. Maybe you're looking for crash bars, just search right in the Vespa Motorsport YouTube channel, and you can search over 900 videos I've made over the years, all about Vespas. I'll see you on the next one. Robot here.